One of the most heartbreaking scenes in the Mahabharata begins with a young warrior doing something almost impossible. Abhimanyu breaks into the Chakravyuha, the most dangerous battle formation on Kurukshetra, knowing he has only part of the knowledge he needs. The question is not only why he entered. The deeper question is why the adults around him allowed a war to demand that sacrifice. Abhimanyu is not a side character who wandered into history by accident. He is Arjuna's son, Krishna's nephew, and the embodiment of a future the Pandavas still hope to protect. That is why his fall hurts so deeply. When Abhimanyu enters the formation, the Mahabharata is not only testing one prince. It is testing whether brilliance, lineage, and courage are enough against organized cruelty. This episode follows the story as a trap built in layers. First there is strategy. Then there is pressure. Then there is isolation. Finally there is the collapse of battlefield ethics. Abhimanyu's death matters because it reveals more than personal bravery. It reveals what happens when war stops respecting limits, and when victory becomes more important than honor, rule, or age. So the story opens with a simple but merciless tension. A formation must be broken. Arjuna is away. Time is disappearing. The elders need an answer immediately. In that vacuum, Abhimanyu steps forward. His choice looks heroic, and it is heroic. But the Mahabharata asks us to look harder. Heroism can also be the last language left when strategy has already gone wrong. The 13th day of war is designed around absence. Drona knows Arjuna is the Pandavas' best answer to complex formations, so he helps create conditions that keep Arjuna away. Once that happens, the Chakravyuha becomes a weapon of timing as much as geometry. It is not just a circle of soldiers. It is a moving machine built to divide, confuse, and destroy whoever enters without support. That is why partial knowledge is so dangerous here. Breaking the outer ring is one skill. Surviving the inner collapse is another. The formation keeps changing shape, which means entry without coordinated backup can become self-imprisonment. Abhimanyu knows how to force the first opening. What he does not fully know is how to break out once the spiral closes and the enemy begins attacking from every side. The Pandavas are trapped by urgency. If no one breaks the formation, Drona can reach Yudhishthira and change the war. If Abhimanyu breaks it, the others must follow immediately and protect him inside. So the plan is not reckless in theory. It becomes reckless when execution fails. This is important, because Abhimanyu dies not only from personal risk, but from a chain of collapsing support around him. And this is where the trap truly forms. Abhimanyu creates the opening, but Jayadratha blocks the Pandavas from entering after him. The formation closes. The support fails. Suddenly the young warrior who was supposed to lead a breakthrough is alone inside an enemy design built precisely for isolation. From this point forward, the story turns from battlefield skill to a moral test of everyone surrounding him. Tradition remembers that Abhimanyu learned how to enter the Chakravyuha while still in Subhadra's womb, but not how to exit because the explanation broke off before completion. Whether read literally or symbolically, the image is powerful. He carries extraordinary inheritance, but not full protection. He possesses a heroic beginning without the complete map needed to survive the end of the path. So why does he agree? Partly because he is brave. Partly because he is trained to respond when the war demands skill. But partly because the situation leaves him no honorable way to step back. The elders need action now. He can do what no one else present can do. In epic warfare, the ability to help often becomes its own command, even when the cost is visible. There is also something heartbreaking in his confidence. Abhimanyu is not arrogant, but he knows he is capable. He has grown inside a world where legendary names are family, and he has every reason to believe his courage will be matched by the system around him. The tragedy is that his faith in the war code and in timely support proves more fragile than his own fighting spirit. That is the last clean moment before the disaster hardens. Abhimanyu does exactly what is asked of him. He breaks the formation. He trusts the others to enter behind him. Then the breach seals. In a single turn of war, duty becomes abandonment. He is still the same warrior, still full of force, but now every step forward also carries the knowledge that help is no longer coming in time. What makes the story even more extraordinary is that isolation does not break Abhimanyu immediately. He fights like the son of Arjuna. He tears through seasoned warriors, disrupts the formation from within, and forces the Kauravas side to confront an embarrassing truth. The young prince they trapped is still dangerous enough to damage their entire plan. That is when fear begins corrupting restraint. The combat now shifts from duel to swarm. Instead of meeting him one by one in clean warrior fashion, several great fighters begin pressing him together. The Mahabharata wants us to notice this change. When a code is respected, even enemies acknowledge the dignity of contest. When that code begins to crack, power stops proving itself and starts protecting itself through numbers, timing, and collective pressure. His bow is broken. His chariot is destroyed. His horses are gone. The battlefield strips him of every normal advantage, but he keeps fighting. This persistence matters because it exposes the real moral shape of the scene. Abhimanyu is no longer being tested in a fair military contest. He is being ground down by a sequence of advantages arranged against someone who has already been cut off from rightful support. Even then he does not become small. He becomes legendary. Fighting on foot, turning broken remnants into weapons, Abhimanyu transforms defeat into accusation. Every extra moment he survives makes the Kaurava victory look less glorious and more compromised. That is the secret at the heart of this episode. Courage does not save his body, but it reveals the moral poverty of the men who need unfairness to finish him. The end comes not as the clean fall of a warrior in equal combat, but as the result of many violations converging at once. Older and greater fighters attack together. Restraint disappears. The code of war bends until it no longer deserves that name. This is why Abhimanyu's death is remembered with such intensity. It is not only sad. It feels like the public exposure of a civilization failing its own standards. When Arjuna returns and hears what happened, grief turns instantly into vow. The story now expands beyond one death. Abhimanyu's fall becomes a spark that changes the emotional temperature of the entire war. Personal mourning becomes strategic fury. The Pandavas are no longer only fighting for rule or justice in the abstract. They are now carrying the memory of a son destroyed inside a trap. That is why Jayadratha becomes the next target of history. He did not strike the final blow, but he sealed the isolation that made everything else possible. Arjuna's vow to kill him before sunset is more than revenge. It is the war's answer to abandonment. The father now tries to break the very chain of events that trapped the son inside a formation and left him without rescue. Abhimanyu's death also leaves a wound inside the Pandava cause itself. They did not betray him, but they failed to reach him. That distinction matters, yet it does not cancel the guilt. The Mahabharata is brutally honest about this kind of pain. Sometimes even the righteous side carries unbearable responsibility, not because it desired evil, but because it could not prevent the structure of evil from closing in time. So what does Abhimanyu finally represent in the Mahabharata? He represents courage at its purest, but also the terrible cost of courage when systems fail around it. he is the warrior who did everything asked of him and more. Yet his greatness only becomes fully visible because the world around him becomes smaller, meaner, and less honorable the longer he keeps fighting. That is why this story stays alive across generations. It is not just about a prince who died young. It is about incomplete knowledge, delayed support, weaponized timing, and the price a family pays when the code of war collapses before their eyes. Abhimanyu's brilliance makes the loss memorable. The injustice of the method makes the memory impossible to forgive easily. The final lesson is sharp. Heroism is essential, but heroism alone cannot repair a broken structure. Leaders must think ahead, allies must arrive in time, and power without ethics eventually exposes its own shame. Abhimanyu entered the Chakravyuha as a young warrior. He emerged in memory as a measure of everyone else, because his courage made their failures impossible to hide. That is why the trap of the Chakravyuha still matters. It reminds us that courage can be magnificent, but without timely support and moral restraint around it, courage can be forced to pay the price for everyone else's failures. If this episode helped you see the Mahabharata more deeply, like this video, subscribe to EkalavyaLearn, and turn on the bell icon so you receive the next story on time. The next question after Abhimanyu is just as fierce: how Arjuna answered Jayadratha before the sun went down.